It makes sense to be here. It makes sense to get into the discussion. Everybody is maybe a bit focused on different points, but it's really relevant to have us all here and discuss and get connected and get into the points. And I was surprised really to learn about there are a lot of innovation trends already going, and I would like to give you a short introduction into that, what we do under political circumstances. Many of us, we talked about this in the morning panel about how does policy making influence our ESCO business models. And maybe we can give you a brief insight into that. I'm a managing director of the Energy Service Companies Association in Germany. It's called EDL Hub, which is in German ESCO Hub. I'm busy in this, if it's good or not, since almost 30 years in different positions in that context. But it's fun. It's setting up an association 5 years from nothing, from scratch. It's fun. Gives you some gray hair, but it's really fun. What we do is, of course, we have 3 pillars on what we do. Actually, of course, policy. And the second, networking. You see it here. Okay, we need not talk about everybody of us doing this or experiencing that. But what we specifically, although we are very small, we are 3 persons in total, but only since April, we have been 2 so far, is innovation and market development design. That's something I took from my last job with me, and we did a lot of research and practical experience in the context of the international energy agencies in the past. So I really like that. That's my hobby, and that's what I like to conduct and what I want to present you briefly, because I think it's very relevant, because policy is directly related to what our market is. So if we have a good policy and nobody, as we heard it here from some of our colleagues, nobody is enforcing it, that's nice. We have nice paperwork, but the market isn't going. So we have experienced a couple of things which are going, and we try to follow up with some practical projects which are financed by third party. That could be Department of Energy in Germany, or it could be European Commission, or it could be a European Climate Foundation, or anybody willing to contribute some money for good reasons to us. And we make something out of that. It looks like a new business case for the ESCO industry. So that's something we do. And since April this year, we venture into the context of waste heat recovery. So we want to make the case between waste heat and the decarbonization of the German heating market. So far, only 1% of the waste heat in Germany is used. 99% is not used. If we use that, what is economically sensibly, we can replace 50%, or we can make green heating in 50% of all our housing buildings in Germany. So it's a value, and it's something we need to go into and need to venture into, and that's where we'll start. And of course, we are looking here for the new business cases, how to take the guarantees and maybe backups and everything, and how to make it a business case for greening the heat in district heating or local heating grids. So that's something we'll go into. And another thing which is really Sisyphus work, but it's quite of a fun. If we venture in multi-owner and family, apartment buildings, so multi-owner apartment buildings, that's the sleeping giant. We have a renovation rate in Germany there somewhere 0.5, and we should have at least 2.5. So some space to be covered here. So, and what we try to here as well is to open up this case, this really tremendous but really locked up case with business models for the ESCOs. That means we created some advanced ESCO business models based on a mix of supply solutions and solutions which come out of the ESPC, so a kind of guarantee, but not so strictly. because the evaluation is not easy and everybody needs to understand, and these are common people. It's a B2C business, so it needs to be understandable. So that's something we did and we'll finalize this, and hopefully we have, at least in Berlin, some of the pilot cases where we really start into the deep renovation. So, but back to the topic. I don't want to hover you all through the German regulation, but Germany is also a sleeping giant, or has been, and since the Ukrainian war has started and had a strong impact, we decided, or our federal government decided, to move out of the natural gas very quickly. And that had some legislative effects, of course. 3 of them you can see here. So one is the building regulation, of course, which foresees that within the next 2 or 3 years, you will have to do the third thing, the heating design regulation. So each of municipality has to prepare and provide municipal heat planning. And with that municipal heat planning, you can decide if you go and connect yourself with your building to a heating grid, which will then be developed, of course, maybe using waste heat, who knows, and then go from there. And that's a very important target, and it's going quite well off. And we also have the energy efficiency regulation, which means certain targets. They are not very strict, but some efficiency targets for the industry, defining some kind of benchmarks for energy efficient processes, also setting mandatory the use and the evaluation and the use of waste heat for the first time in Germany, just to fill into that gap what I mentioned before. So I don't want to dive in much depth into that. I just wanted to show you how this has an impact on that, what is really going on with the business model. Because what we experienced in the past 2 years, in Germany at least, is that the business models the classical business models, so you have the energy supply contracting, you have the energy performance contracting, has mixed up severely. So it is not, you will not see much of the poor religions on the one side, and on the other side it has been developed into a mixed case, and that is quite interesting. And if you look at that, what the impacts of this regulation so far are, and what caused these changes, it's the heating design, of course, which requires a decarbonization pathway for buildings, and also in a different regulation for the industry. And then, of course, thinking about how to handle this means it's a fuel switch. So we need to move out of the gas. We have some assets, stranded assets like gas grids, which will be to be discussed. Nobody exactly knows how this will go. And energy efficiency is set also in the building sector, especially, and that is maybe some relevant for others here in this room, especially for the public sector. So the public sector has ordinated a 3% refurbishment rate, and they are required to look into the ESPC business model first, especially when they say, okay, we have no funding for nothing. So that is quite interesting. So we are able, through our discussions, to design a certain nice ambience for the ESCO so far. And what we learn out of that, I wanted to show you without diving too deep. So the first thing is what I mentioned before is we will not have and do not see the classical business cases, performance contracting and supply contracting, in a strict separated way. That does not work, at least as you dive into industry processes where you try to electrify former natural gas processes, and where you want to replace natural gas by electricity. And especially also in the building sector, where you see, okay, we do not only want to replace the heating system and do some of the HVAC stuff, so we also want to dive into the thermal envelope. So that requires longer contract periods and so on. We will look at this, and that leads us to the point that we say, okay, we can take the best out of both worlds. So we have on one hand kind of performance guarantee in the ESPC, and we can also take the longer running utility, because utility contracts usually are 20 years plus. In Germany, they are closely related to the district heating legislation, so it's allowed to have more or longer contract period. So which I wanted to say is, of course, we have this mix of things. we need also to rethink about our business model as such. And I heard it very often yesterday in the evening. By the way, it was a very nice restaurant. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it very much. We heard it always in the discussion. Well, we're an ESCO. We don't provide any kind of, consultation. We will not do any consultation. But if you looked at on this heating design, which will take place on the municipal basis, you will see, okay, somebody else is doing this design, and you as an ESCO can just take what those guys left for you. So if they produce something which is not to be realized in terms of ecology or economics, it's not with a payback, which is really realistic, or the costs are completely out of the world, then you are the guys as ESCOs to have to take this and then make the audience learn, okay, guys, this is a nice plan, but it's totally different. And that's not the role we want to take. So we see more and more and recommend also for ESCOs to go more and more into the consultation, because such kind of heating designs or transformation plans is, of course, very interesting when you are at the starting point of the process and not just somewhere in between, having the intersections between this and that and not knowing who is doing what and how the quality of the product is so far. We discussed it here at the finance panel very much, but it should be self-explaining and mandatory that ESCOs and the ESCO Association, and that's also a tough call for us, venture into the subsidy programs. So we are quite successful in the past few months, but not perfectly, to make ESCOs eligible to apply for subsidy programs, which are very important in the building sector and also very important in the industry sector in Germany, I can tell. So that we have not a disadvantage for an industry company deciding, okay, I go with the ESCO and I will have the same subsidy situation as if I do it by myself with the classical way, with some planners, designers, and some companies carrying it out. And then, of course, I can tell also we see a strong increase of demand in the market. It has not figured out in statistic, but what we see, the complexer the regulation is, it's a bit stupid, but we must see that clearly, the complexer the solutions are. So decarbonize your heating system in a 20-family building, and you are in the mid of Berlin and you have a noise issue, so you can just not use a heat pump and the district heating is still coal. So look what you can get. The more and the better it is for ESCOs, because they are used to solve complex solutions. So what we see is that the housing sector comes step by step to us, say, okay, this is way too complex. It's not just replacing gas boiler by another gas boiler. It's more complex, so we need you guys. And so this is quite interesting. And I don't want to venture into that deep into, I think we can save some time here with regard to the wine glasses. But presentations will be available, of course, anyway. But if we venture into this electrified future in the district heating or in the heating generally, we have, of course, some technical issues. And, of course, we have a huge first investment. That's maybe the largest difference between a fossil investment, where you have a low-cost gas boiler, whatever it is, and now you have a heat pump with ground sourcing and deep geothermy and this and that. So have a huge increase in the investment cost, which is only partly reduced by subsidies. So you have to rethink about your business model anyway, because the investment and the payback of the investment is much more important than it has been in the past in the fossil fuel age. So that is quite interesting. And we had to react in the past 6 weeks or so. We had a couple of workshops with our members to how can we just get this into the market? Because how can you handle this? Either you have higher prices, okay, acceptance will go down, or you have longer time periods, and then you come to the point, okay, maintenance is maybe a looming risk. So, and that is bringing us to something which definitely has an impact. So in brief, moving into electrified heating systems based on heat pumps and others has a strong impact on our pricing system, has a strong impact also in our business case. And it's necessary to combine, at this case, of course, energy savings by mitigating energy savings performance contract and also energy supply contracts with long contract periods. That's how we consider it as correct. Also, there has been a golden rule not to touch the building so far for all those suppliers. This also has gone, of course. You need to venture into the building to reduce demands and implement more energy efficiency. Also, we need to have a new role for the CHP. CHP has been in district heating in large scale, small scale, medium scale, a very important piece of the supply side. So we need to figure out how what is the new role for the CHP? And it's simple speaking about it, but it's quite complex carrying out, and it's also a new business case, grid stabilization, with regard to higher electrified heating systems, which increase the electrical demand on local energy grids, that means power grids. So ESCOs with a CHP on site can contribute to grid stabilization. Has not been the case in the last 10 years, but it's now coming back. So it's quite interesting how these new contracts look alike. So if somebody has a CHP, he delivers heating, but he also gets a revenue stream from creating grid stabilization. Well, it's quite interesting. Let's see where we can get. It gets somehow interesting with regard to the business case. So I think to wrap it up, that's we three guys here. To wrap it up in a few words, the policy we discussed this morning has a strong impact. So anything we lobby in the context, we need to have an idea how to implement this into business cases, business models, and it can be very challenging. We see huge challenges in Germany, and we have actually once a week a remote session on certain issues on new business models and how the designs of the details look alike, to just follow up with the targets of the policy making in Germany. So I hope this gives you some at least ideas which kind of challenges you could face in the future also. But don't worry, you're not alone. Thank you very much.